Welcome to LASER, Leonardo Art and Science Evening Rendezvous. Silent St. Petersburg. Today's discussion concerns education challenges, contemporary art in academic environment. The Leonardo LASERS is a program of an international gathering which brings together artists, scientists, technologists for informal presentation, performances, and conversation with the wider audience. LASER is encourage contribution to the cultural environment to the region by fostering interdisciplinary dialogue and opportunities for community building. Today, we're continuing the conversation focusing on education process in the field of digital art, effective instruments, and practical and theoretical learning, and multidisciplinary project-based approach. What kind of training serves the artist well during a time of cultural and technological change? What educational models are the most successful? How integrated education is being organized? What are the benefits of introduction of digital culture into the academic environment? What are the challenges and advantages of artists in labs and transdisciplinary collaborations? How we can evaluate academic work in digital media, considering rapidly changing technological and professional contexts? What are challenges for guidelines for evaluating digital projects? How can we innovate or improve academic structures? And how we can what opportunities does the integration open and what issues are raised? How we can examine and analyze these educational methods and apply to the current needs and situation. And our first speaker today is Allan Boldon. He's an artist, curator, educator. Allan is the founder and director of the VIF and Dartington Trust. As an artist, he has been exhibited throughout Europe, USA, Canada, and Asia. He has given keynote addresses all over the world in towns, NGOs, universities in many countries. His main areas of interest in the arts, leadership, and learning innovation. What made you decide to tackle these subjects? Tell us about yourself and your research interest, Allan.
Thanks, Natalia. Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So as you've heard, my name's Allan Boldon. I hope it's okay just to stick to 5 minutes. I'm going to read something so that I hopefully manage to say something interesting in the time. So yeah, you've heard that I'm managing director of Dartington Trust, founder director of Weave. I'm also a painter, a curator, and I've designed a ridiculous number of learning programs, to be honest. My areas of concern and focus in all of this are climate crisis, mass biodiversity loss, obscene inequality and inequity. I'm passionately interested in interdisciplinary collaboration because I think we need more joined up and subtle ways of knowing in order to appreciate the wondrous complexity of our world and also to begin to resolve some of the immense challenges we face. I'm not going to say a lot about it, but I'm a painter partly because painting helps me to practice having intention, but holding intention lightly. So when I'm making a painting, I have some initial thoughts, an intention that means that the process is set in motion. And then as the ecology of the marks emerges, if I hold my intentions lightly, there's a chance that something more interesting will emerge that I can attend to. This practice of working out a relationship to intention and process is something that I try to take into dialogue. So as I've said, I'm a curator, and I often design courses that involve curating and curators. In a meeting recently for a degree I've just designed, an arts and ecology master's, a panel member looking at the proposal said that it wasn't really helpful to talk about curating, but they were thinking about a conventional museum studies definition or approach to curating rather than a more contemporary form. And if I think about curare as the Latin word, the origin to care for a collection as the origin of curating, but also to think about how to constellate objects, to bring them together so that they generate meaning, then I think it makes sense to think about what I do as a kind of curating of practices. So I'm going to say a little bit about what I do and what I mean by that. Let me just share a screen, if I can. Just give me 1 second. So, not that one, sorry. Right. All lined up. Here we go. Is that sharing? Yeah, so I'm interested in place and complexity, and also fundamentally in trying to find out what it's like to see the world through someone else's being and becoming. I've established a practice of place-based learning where I invite people to conceive of a short, intensive inquiry to find out more about a place, employing their method or approach. So for instance, an artist, economist, engineer, horticulturalist, and so on. The idea being that along with others, I inhabit their method. As much as we can do that, we try to inhabit the method of the person leading the inquiry so that we can find out about the place. I compose the groups so that there are a few people with practices that can reveal place. Through this process, we inhabit first one practice or way of knowing place, and then the person who's been leading that inquiry rejoins the group, and a second person takes the lead to begin an inquiry focused on the same place, and so on. In this way, we're presented with different ways of knowing the place, different methods, and different impressions of the place in the form of data, information, experience, story. And a couple of things happen. One is that we tend to acknowledge the capacity, it's revealed, the capacity, the genius even, of the methods, the ways of knowing. The way that the place is revealed reveals the genius of the methods. And therefore we can't casually discard or discount the results of any of the inquiries. Effectively, we go through a series of inquiries in relation to the same place. They produce very different kinds of material. And sometimes there can be a jarring or discordant relationship between the different outcomes. So what to do then? Well, I think at this point it becomes fascinating, a fascinating process in which we try to understand something of how we come to know the world, our ways of knowing, our prejudices, our tendencies, our disciplinary training, our inclinations, and our blind spots. And we may, through a combination of these different ways of knowing, start to get a sense of the wonder and complexity of place, and in doing so, potentially begin the process of imagining hybrid practices or even transdisciplinary ways of knowing. And perhaps beyond that, a glimpse and possibly some insight into who we are and who the other is, and how we can really engage in interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary dialogue of depth. So just to say very briefly, I'm currently working on establishing a number of master's degrees that do this, but also some international collaborations where we will establish a network of this kind of place-based inquiry that supports transdisciplinary dialogue and engages with the complex features and challenges of places across a wide range of bioregions. What we're aiming to do is create a learning network with transdisciplinary residencies and collaboration embedded throughout. So as you can see, I've rather, well, hopefully provocatively put St. Petersburg in there. So I'm working very actively on a number of partnerships in Dartington, which is one of the places I'm based, in Paris, throughout North America, Southeast Asia. And actually, you know, I do think, and that's worth putting into this discussion, and I think that's probably why you've curated this, the interest in transdisciplinary dialogue and trying to find ways of collaborating that reveal complexity of place, I think is something which is, you know, gaining real interest. I think the sort of rather unfortunate focus on the STEM agenda in education is stifling creativity, innovation, and real appreciation of the wonder of place, as well as our potential to start solving some of the complex problems that we're facing. Just a brief glimpse of what I do, and hopefully that was interesting. Maybe we can talk about it in a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alan. And our second speaker is Gediminas Urbonas. He's an artist, curator, and co-founder with Nameda Urbonas, the Urbonas Studio. It's an interdisciplinary research practice that facilitates among a very diverse nodes of knowledge production and artistic practice. Nameda and Urbonas' writings on artistic research in the form of interventions was published in Devices for Actions and Public Space, Lost and Found. And Urbonas also created a swamp school at the 16th Venice Architectural Biennale in 2018. And the book, Swamp and the New Imaginations, forthcoming in 2021. So he's associate professor in MIT Program of Art, Culture, and Technology. Gediminas, what is your inspiration behind your creative process? Tell us about yourself, your artistic search, and research interest.
Thank you, Natalia. I hope do you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you for your kind introduction. It is a great pleasure to be here, and I appreciate this invitation from LASER and also Sealand and Kolodzei. Appreciate that. Alan made a wonderful entry point with this evocation for the wonder of place. So let me share my screen because I want to get you to one of such places. Which is the swamp. Okay. And as Natalia mentioned, the swamp school, I think the central question in my work and also in the lab that we founded at MIT's program for art, culture, and technology, that is the climate visions, and this lab started last year as also a continuation and outgrowth of the multi-annual project on zoetics. And Alan's colleague Tracy Ward was also a participant of that, our collaborator. So our work is dealing with and engaging the planetary urgency. I wanted to share with you few core ideas that are behind the Swamp School, as the Swamp School is probing the idea of the post-institution. So I want to start with this, with outlining the trajectories that speak of the school or a research lab or a practice. And as today we're talking about education, so we're talking about the forms also of learning that move outside of institution. And that is also related to pedagogical turn. And we know the pedagogical turn that is being inspired by practices such as Joseph Beuys in the 70s. But I think today it is absolutely necessary for us to consider rereading and recombination of that, of pedagogical turn, that should consider non-Western and also non-modernist views. It also, idea of post-institution also speaks to the interest of non-permanence. As beyond permanent emerges the commons. Another idea is interpretation of current frameworks of pedagogy. I think Alan also mentioned emerging knowing or considering other ways of knowing the world. So here we have emergence as epistemology, also temporal habitats, also forms of nomadic learning, and also employing of sensory aggregates. That is Deleuzean idea. And you know, perhaps I should give a little comment that you see these ideas being drafted in the over the image, overlaying the image of the swamp of the peat being extracted. You know, the swamps where these amazing repositories of human and non-human knowledge, and the peat accumulated not only methane and carbon oxygen, but also because of its anaerobic condition, it is also considered as the amazing repository of the knowledge that that predates human histories. And so how can we bring those ways of knowing the world that were drained with establishing hierarchies and really withdrawing all other ways of knowing by draining the swamps. In the core of this pedagogy, it is also another idea, which is reframing of the environment. And in the core of this reframing, it is a change of the perspective. So we're moving from basically from the anthropocentric, from this kind of like core idea that that is in the foundation of what is considered human knowledge, and this foundation is built through the, from the Enlightenment, you know, with classification of knowledges. It permits academia, or permits what we could say also Europocentristic or Anglo-Saxon academia. So change of the perspective and decentering of the idea of the human is important, and this perhaps also can lead us to the ideas of care, of love, and also of assembly, and also idea of imagination of art that is beyond the visual and beyond the oral, and also beyond the known, and engagement with the experience, and perhaps that is also idea, you know, that is inspired by Dewey, but here we also talking about Amerindian perspectives. We're talking also about indigenous perspectives, and also perspective of other species. And many people were asking us, why do we start with the swamp? Why not marshes? Why not wetlands? So our starting point was really embracing the irritant perspective. As we know, the draining of the swamps comes from the 19th century political rhetorics. But also swamps are places of resistance and resilience, as we know it also from the Great Small Swamps. And also they are bringing important dialectics where the foundations of science, as in the also you can find in the writings of Karl Popper, and later also in the research of the cyberneticians such as Gordon Pask and Stafford Beer, and also brothers Odum, who were really fascinated by the wet ontologies and by the estuaries and also wetlands, as they could suggest as systems of balance, if you will, and of course I could continue here more, but I think perhaps also I could just stop here and perhaps stop at this slide that speaks also to us entering the sphere of instability and uncertainty and also the territory that demands a different type of pedagogy. And here we, of course, we want to embrace and suggest amphibian pedagogy as the way to be savvy in different disciplinary territories. Is the amphibian as a figure suggests rereading of interdisciplinarity and bringing it to the place, to a more concrete environment, to the milieu, such as the swamp, for example. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Nina Cegledi. She's a media artist, curator, educator, and researcher with international academic affiliation. She works internationally on collaborative art, science, and technology projects. And most recently, she curated Agent for Change in 2020, featuring international media artists working with the environment. Tell us a bit, tell us about yourself and share your learning experiences from your own interdisciplinary practice and your research interests. Nina, please.
Hello. Hello, everybody. And first of all, thank you very much, Natalie, and everybody on both sides of the oceans helped you to bring this. I have been working with Leonardo for a long time, and LASER is the most effective, most really interesting for me part of all the Leonardo activities. So thank you very much, and thank you for all the panelists and whoever came to this event. I would like to share my screen, if I can. Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, great, looks great.
Okay. So we were talking with Natalie about the artist residencies in various scientific labs and science and academic labs. And I really think that when we talk about anything, it's not enough to talk about the now and the present. We always have to look a little bit back to the past, at the same time also look forward to the future. So I start with the past. The residency programs in academic and corporate labs in contemporary times date back to more than 5 decades. And within the experiments in art and technology, or EAT for short, the Nokia Bell Labs pioneered in 1967 the fusion of art and science, long before the artist residency programs became popular or fashionable. So we also have to look at the outcome of these residencies. And one outcome was of this particular 9 evenings, theater and engineering, which was a series of new art performance works that changed music, theater, and media art, something forever. So back here in Canada, in Montreal, Data, an exhibition in 2004 was the result of a very successful residency by Giselle Trudel and Stefan Claude of A-Lab. And the residency was at the Nano Lab at McGill University. And I recall vividly when we were talking about it afterwards, that how the resident scientists in this mega lab proclaimed that the residency was of mutual discovery and a mutual benefit to both the scientists and the artists. So the countless residency outcomes include Sonic Antarctica by Andrea Poli, presenting her field recordings at her Antarctica residency, and this is from 2007 and 2008. So I move now for some of my own experiences in various residencies, and this is Polar Circle. Polar Circle was from, I think 96 was the first one, and I think we had 4 of them all together up to 99. And I would like to say at the same time here that these residencies, historical or contemporary, are not always necessarily located inside places, but outside the confines of labs. So this, for example, is a very special residency. It's called the Solar Circuit, and it took place in 2002. It was an international residency in the Moria Island Nature Park, Tasmania. We had no electricity, no phones, no internet, but plenty of kangaroos and snakes, inspiring excellent projects. And for me, the Canadian New Media Institute was an internationally respected multimedia research innovation center, and it hosted symposiums, exhibitions, and residencies for decades. And one of the features was that it welcomed even families, and this is not a known feature of artist residencies. So the acoustic space lab and this Soviet era 32mm diameter dish antenna was formerly used to spy on satellite transmission. It was nearly destroyed in 1994. As soon as it was repaired, we 30 artists from all over the world convened for space art residencies. Of course, there are many, many, many more excellent examples. I just focus briefly on my own experiences. Today, the famous best known artist residencies for interdisciplinary projects are offered at MIT or at CERN, where artists become involved in the newest discoveries and the newest technologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much for very insightful presentation. And our next speaker is Sильвия Бурини. She is Associate Professor, Director of the Center of Studies of Russian Art, the Tsar, at Kafovskaya University in Venice, which is celebrating the 10th anniversary today. So congratulations, such a milestone. Sylvia is a curator, international researcher of Russian and contemporary art. She is a co-chair of the Working Group on Culture in the Italian-Russian Forum, and she also in charge of the events in Department of Philosophy and Cultural Heritage. And she is a vice coordinator for the International PhD program in art history. Tell us about yourself, your research interests, and programs and projects in Kafovskaya University in Venice. Sylvia, please.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here, and hello from Venice. So I try to share now, just a minute, I think. Sorry. Okay, so I'm a professor of history of Russian and contemporary art and director of the Center of the Study for the Russian Art, as Natalia said. About XAR, today is our birthday, 10 years, and XAR is one of the research center of our Department of Philosophy and Cultural Heritage. And over these 10 years, it has become one of the main and most vibrant European research institutes in the field of Russian art. And we organized more than 40 exhibitions, 15 festivals of Russian films, Russian cultural mission in Venice, and more than 40 volumes of translation proceedings, conferences and exhibition catalogs, and a lot of other publication. About XAR, we organized a lot of exhibition in partnership with leading Russian museums. So I don't want to name all the museums, but Hermitage, Pushkin, Tretyakov, Moscow Contemporary Art, and not only museum, with the cultural institution, with Silent, for example, very important for us in Venice. And we have set new standard for the promotion of Russian culture in Italy and abroad, I think. And the center has curated projects all over in Italy and abroad in Moscow, for example. This exhibition aimed at presenting the Russian artist heritage in accordance with its cultural traditions, as well as current approaches in the humanities and strategies in the museum practice. So I tried to show you something. This is our direction and our scientific secretariat with the young collaborators, students and PhD students, and the scientific committee, really important. There are a lot of scholars, museum directors, curators, and so we try to, and artists as well. So we try to mix all the competition. And so first and second, a lot exhibition curated by XAR or in collaboration with cultural institution. And this exhibition, I think they reflect the key missions of the center to implement the network of museums and cultural foundations and artists and curators in Russia and Italy, to introduce the Italian audience to Russian arts, culture, history, to develop new approaches to public programs and educational multimedia installation, because we want to enhance the potential of the university exhibition venues in Venice, not only, in accordance with Ca' Foscari's main aim to display the research, to show our scientific research. And that's the point. I go through our very quickly exhibition. It was Prigov with Hermitage, and first exhibition with Silent. I go very quickly. Russian avant-garde in Vicenza. You can see our device to show the exhibition. And Rodchenko in Venice. So we try to show not only photos, but the object as well. Infante in Venice as well. Moskva Underground, is a great exhibition with a lot of devices to show the culture of the period. Silent with Capital of Nowhere in Venice during the Biennale. It's like a tradition for us. It's lost in translation with the Moscow Museum of Contemporary Art. And first project with Tretyakov Gallery, very important painting from Moscow, but this painting was at the Biennale in '62, so it's like a reenacting of the exhibition. Eisenstein, Raginsky during the Biennale again. Russian texture and the interior of Russian beginning of the 20th century, and Impressionism as well from the Moscow Museum of Impressionism. And the first project with Grisha Bruskin, we curated 4 projects in Italy, Squarini Stampalia in Venice. So it's a lot, so I go very quickly, sorry. Second, during the Biennale in a church, and contemporary on my way at Ca' Foscari with Silent. Exhibition of Kandinsky in Milan, Mudec, very, very important exhibition for the type of display and how we can show Kandinsky in Italy with a lot of multimedia devices. And Hubris, it's with Silent at the Biennale, sorry, but I can understand the time of all the exhibitions. So it was Biennale, yes, as well. And Kashlyakov in Ca' Foscari as well during the Biennale. And contemporary, I was the co-curator of the Russian Pavilion with Bruskin. And I can show you the first floor with big exhibition. And last project, Bruskin project in Vicenza. Gorizia, when we showed something about Russian Revolution. And in Moscow at the Pushkin State Museum, a very interesting exhibition of Fabrizio Plessi. So it's the opposite. We show an Italian artist in Moscow, the Sci-Fest at Ca' Foscari. And the last exhibition with Silent at Ca' Foscari at the last Biennale, contemporary with Gali Korja from Tretyakov and a Russian museum. And the last at the moment, Kandinsky, Kancharova, Chagall and Russian icons in Vicenza. That's all our exhibition in these years. Moreover, our conferences our center has conceived and organized a lot of conferences and international symposia involving other universities, museums, cultural institutions. And for me, it's really important the focus on Yuri Lottom, Semiotics of Culture. Now I'm translating a huge volume about semiotics of art from Lottman's heritage, so it's really important for us, but not only Florensky, Lottman, and a lot of other topics. I've already said that we had a very huge activity of public publication of scientific and research activities, so you can have a look through this kind of activities. Cinema, Science Aids Foundation, XAR has worked in partnership with the Center for Film Festival and International Programs from Moscow. So we can show a lot of films, Russian films, and starting with the Ruskino at Ca' Foscari. It's the annual Venetian Festival of Contemporary Russian Cinema, but not only this one. And it's really important that our students can try to subtitle the film so they can get this kind of skill. So it's Ruskino at Ca' Foscari. Research, we have a very important PhD program with Moscow, and with us work research staff from faculty, from department, from other university. And we have a really, I think, interesting for Sophia that she's not with us, but it's for her. We spoke a lot about this because we start an educational program. It's Carte Lab. It's like a laboratory on regular basis events, workshop, and educational programs. But I can't go through this because it's already, I think, over the time. But I would like to show you the program with cultural mediators. It's like a project program very important for Venice because they are competent actors within an exhibition space. So they worked not only at the university, but in Biennale, on all the other Venetian museums. So it's really a good experience for our students. And there are a lot of foundation or museum in Venice. We work about this project with the cultural mediator. So it's our website if you want to see our project or to see the video that we launched today for the birthday. So that's all you can see it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And thank you all for your wonderful presentations. And now we're starting our discussion. So what kind of training serve artists well during this time of cultural and technological change? Nina, you gave an excellent overview of the artist in residence program and also artists in science labs. Gediminus, I would like to ask you first, what kind of advantages and challenges of artists in labs and transdisciplinary collaborations?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all, Nina and Sylvia, for your really inspiring stories, for sharing your points, and that was really excellent. You know, I just felt that. I really regretted that I didn't bring the story of the history of the place of CABS, the precursor of our program at MIT, Center for Advanced Visual Studies, which was founded by Georgi Kepes, who was institute professor at MIT since 45, and he founded the center in 68. And the idea was to bring artists along the designers to engage scientists and technologists and engineers to develop what Kepes saw at that time art on the civic and environmental scale. So we try to sort of respond to that legacy, but of course recombine and rethink from today's perspective, and not only limited to that, but to reflect on your question and what kind of training one needs today to engage all these different urgencies and emergencies, as it was proposed by Alan and also resonated, through the other presentations, Nina and Sylvia, and I hope also what I brought as a planetary urgency, or even this Latourian question, how to land, so sort of like, so what sort of training, I think, I perhaps I'm sharing this kind of like radical approach, with my story, with the Swamp School, saying that that we need to go beyond the institutions, so in a way, I would say the artist, this legacy, starting from the Bell laboratories, and going even up to CERN, it is a way of kind of like leaving the academy, right? Leaving the academy and really trying to find the place, using Alan's proposition, so. Working along with other experts, scientists, technologists, destabilizing science, questioning, science, proposing what I'm calling artistic intelligence, or things that are uncomputable, things that are not possible to sort of like put into the scrutiny of the algorithms, you know, and you know, I brought these, you know, some of the examples from the cyberneticians, you know, and people who were really fascinated by the idea of the homeostasis, planetary homeostasis, and also equilibrium. You know, they believe that, you know, that the natural systems or ecosystems, you know, such as river estuaries or wetlands or, you know, what I'm calling swamps, you know, can help, you know, us to really think how can we find the equilibrium in the human life, you know, or even complex industries. You know, if we look at, for example, Stafford Beer, you know, who was proposing that the processes in the swamp can help us regulate traffic in the big cities, or can even help us to manage the big companies, like in his book, The Brain of the Firm, for example. So I think today it is absolutely important to merge, you know, these two ontologies, you know, what is known as a dry ontology. You know, this is kind of like, you know, what emerges in the you know, in the context of the cybernetics, the post-war, you know, cybernetics, and still permits a lot, you know, what I see also in today's, you know, like at MIT, for example, we have new college for computation, you know, established just, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, so this is really a huge emphasis on what I'm calling, you know, the dry ontology. Right, you know, with the wet ontology. So this hybridization, I think Alan also was alluding to hybridization. You know, and that's kind of like perhaps a different type of hybridization that Latour is referring to, right? So, but sort of like, you know, but getting back to what Karl Popper is also suggesting, you know, that the science, as we know, is you know, is not standing on the solid bedrock. You know, the science, as we know, you know, is standing on this kind of like very soft surface. You know, maybe there is no even hard. You know, like so this surface he's describing is a swamp. You know, and what he's suggesting that, you know, that, you know, one needs to really sort of like dive deep down into the swamp. You know, so this speaks kind of like, you know, about hybridity and necessity to connect these two ontologies, the dry ontology and the wet ontology, right? You know, things that are non-computable, things that, you know, were not considered by the modernity, things that were erased by draining the swamps, you know, things that were maybe considered as non-human, as a witchcraft, you know, as not legitimate, you know, as not, you know, scientific, not scholarly, not academic enough, you know. And I think not only recognition, but I think also navigation. You know, this is what I'm calling the amphibian figure or amphibian pedagogy, is the ability to navigate in both of these contexts. So I think this is what is needed, to my view, what is needed as part of the training today for artists who are working in the labs.
Thank you so much. Alan, you mentioned that recently you created MA, MFA program on art and ecology, composed of the transdisciplinary lab. So can you elaborate what kind of advantages does this, and opportunity does this integration process open, and what issues are raised, and what are the challenges, and how can other institutions partner or participate in your programs? Alan?
Yeah, great. I mean, so I'm just taking in what Gediminus just said, because there was so much in there. I really like the dry and the wet ontology, especially with the image of people trying to walk along those birch trees or branches, very unstable. And again, about science not being on hard ground, but, you know, being much more about approximate or contingent knowledge. And it made me think of, and I think this is related to, you know, what you just asked me, Natalia. There was something I read a number of years ago about Tennyson writing a poem about a flower he encountered. So he plucks the flower and writes a poem about the beauty of the flower. in doing so, he's killed it and decontextualized it, removed it from its context and its life force. And then Goethe notices on a walk a plant that he loves, and he digs it up so that he can put it in a pot and put it on his window and study it. So it's still decontextualized, but in many ways he wants to look at the living entity, but not in relationship. And then Basho, who on a walk recounts in a number of just very short lines the encounter with a flower. He notices its beauty and he walks on. And there's something I think really significant in that. So I'm very interested in place-based inquiry, as I've said, and I think it does speak to a lot of what people have been saying. The programs, I mean, so I just designed an MFA Arts and Ecology. That will be a series of labs where we do bring together people for a month-long residency in each lab. We'll look at the place through the practice of economists, basically in a way using the sort of classic three ecologies model, kind of encounter the place through practices that might speak to the social ecology, the economy, the environment. In some ways, I suppose you asked what training. I almost think almost any training is interesting, as long as it's just a starting point so that you understand what a practice is, what a discipline is. And then, as I said, hold that lightly as a way of engaging with the world and engaging with others. And the questions, I think, that move from interdisciplinarity and into transdisciplinarity are about, they're kind of meta questions about how we make meaning, how we encounter each other. And I suppose, the degrees that I've just designed are about, sort of, it's almost like a bit of dramaturgy and scenography in a way, creating a space for these encounters to happen so that we can learn from each other, encounter the place through each other, and then think about how we might collaborate in order to know more deeply. I did design a program like this before. It was interesting that we brought together really leading figures from various fields who were all saying, my practice is really advanced in many ways and in other ways not. There are questions that I can't ask that lie outside of the scope of my inquiry or beyond the reach of my method. And maybe that was a scientist or an economist or a philosopher or an artist. And they would point to others who had somehow access to forms of knowledge or insight that they were curious about. And I think that relentless curiosity is a vital thing to instill in any body studying in an academic program. And so I suppose what I've done is create programs where, I brought those people together so that they could explore each other's practices. Just design another program called Arts and Place, where students will do a residency at Dartington, and then they've got the chance of going to do residencies with various bodies in the UK, Tate and the Watershed and the Delphina Foundation. They'll move between rural, urban, industrial, commercial contexts. All of those residencies will be looking at how to collaborate across disciplinary boundaries to get to know the wonders and complexity of place. So it's a peripatetic model. And again, it's kind of in the spirit of some of what Gediminus was talking about and Nina, it's kind of trying to take the institution outside or move beyond the institution. And yeah, I think Nina talked about new forms of making, sensing and feeling. And I think to put that alongside what Gediminus was saying about the sort of colonizing tendency of the Enlightenment classification of knowledge, I think we need to destabilize those disciplinary areas and take them for a walk on rather unstable branches in the swamp.
Thank you. And Sylvia, now we're coming to your institution. 2020 was a very challenging year for all of us, and academic institutions especially. So how does pandemic influence your academic structure? What was the challenges which your teaching did encounter, and what techniques or technologies did help you through the process? And how does traditional form of education evolve in the past year? And what can we learn from that experience and hopefully adopt or keep in the future? Sylvia?
Okay, I show you my second presentation about this problem. And just a minute. So it was really challenging because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, I'm inside an institution, so I have to be inside in this period. And I've tried to understand how we can connect our students with us and through this screen, the screen was for us the only way to connect our skills with them. So I think that on the other way, it was really challenging because I wrote something about it, about semiotics, and I think it's a kind of he said обратная перспектива, it's in English, I think it's a perspective on the other way. I don't know how is the translation, but it's like another kind of proxemic for me. So it's not in front of the students, but in front of the screen. And I try to connect the students in the screen. So we, for example, I give you only some samples of this kind of activities, but I think it will be quite interesting. For example, we try to have some virtual walks in the Russian art, so to discover stories, characters, artworks, in Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So it's a program, a long program. So we started 2 months ago, and we had a lot of Russian artworks at the moment, 4 or 5. You can see in our YouTube program, and I think it's a kind of a new type of narration for Russian art. Then I ask my PhD students to think about other kind of connecting. So for example, Pump Up the Volume is an online project consisting in short film, but not only films like normal films, but something from contemporary art. So music, sound play. So we met and we'll meet composers, musicians, artists, and I think it's really engaging for our students. So it's a long program as well, but I loved it very much. This program about 700 years since the death of our great poet. So it's like another way to celebrate Dante. Twice a week in the Instagram account, we publish stories that reveal Dante's image in Russian culture. So poetry, literature, cinema, theater, and a unique marathon of contemporary art prepared by a team of very young curators and artists. And I like this program very much. So I think it's really going very, very well. And this another, it's Russian art drops, is for Instagram. And I asked to prepare this program by students, not university students, but students from the secondary schools. And it's working very, very good. And 200 Dostoevsky is about the other upcoming anniversary of Fyodor Dostoevsky, and we asked to make a very short video, 1 minute, and we are going to show all these 200 videos on November 11. I hope in presence with the people, and it's going now, this program. And forthcoming is Russia Poetica. So I would like to ask a translator to show the work and to read some pieces from Russian poets in translation in original. And last but not least, Masterskaya Studio, because I understand that it's really important for our students now to have some point of contacts with artists. So these like virtual meetings allow us to go inside on the works, enter literally the studio. So we had some samples with this project, and I think it's really a good project. So it's our side with all these projects. So I think that we tried all together with PhD students, staff from XAR, and that's all we can produce inside an institution. So I think that it's like a unique experience. So it's really bad not to meet, but on the other side, it's a unique possibility to try something different.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And now we're coming back to Nina. What have been your recent learning experiences and kind of post-pandemic thoughts on educational process? The mic, please. We can.
Okay. So my most interesting experience in this last year about learning was and I share my screen quickly. No, I'm sorry, this is not the one. No, it's just something is, no, here it is. Do you see it now? Hello?
Not yet.
Do you see it? No? Sorry. Okay, it's very short time, so I don't want to hold the time up with it. This was, we have an initiative called Post-Pandemic Provocateurs, and 3 of us started it, Roger Molina and Joe Saton and myself, and we have the creative assistance of Vanya Negretti, and we organized a public discussion on learning. And what we really wanted to do something a little different. So the Zoom discussion we did in collaboration with Markus Neustetter from Imaginary Futures, who brought in his collaborators from Johannesburg. These are Black performance artists and singers. But then we had presentations from people who are not necessarily academics, but who work around the world. So Jing Young from South Korea, and then Fred Paulino from Brazil, and so forth. And to be very honest, I initiated this, and I really thought that it's very important that we are bringing in people from not necessarily US centered or Europe centered or Russia centered, but from all over the world. So our presenters were from all over the world and often from rural areas. And we had a good feedback, but not everybody liked it because it was unusual. I have to end with saying that I am an independent, so I don't have spectacular projects, although I work with a lot of people around the world, but I always go for the alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is one question from the audience from Danielle. How can we enable learning initiatives such as dark study, which is led by scholars and thinkers of color? So how we enable this kind of initiatives? Alan, maybe you can give me this. So the question is how we enable learning initiatives such as dark study.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably a question there about how we generally decolonize the curriculum and the campus, and that's something that I think the kind of dialogues that we're talking about have to absolutely, quite rigorously look at who's curating the conversation, who's putting the faculty together. I mean, certainly, we've been looking at that at Dartington and looking at our recruitment policies and who we're appointing to staff, who we're appointing as guest curators. to look at that. I mean, we're working on an event for COP26 with a new guest curator, Ashish Gadiali. Very excited about that. And in advance of that, we're going to be hosting a lab on how we decolonize the learning, the curriculum and the campus. I would also point to, there's a fantastic program at the New School, which is in New York, which is also looking at how we, do a piece of archaeology in a way on the curriculum and the resources that prop up our programs of study from a position of gender and race. So I think there's an awful lot of work to be done there. I think, it starts with, as I say, really looking at, and it's quite striking, you're asking a privileged white man to answer this question. I suppose quite often for me, it's about me getting out of the way. If I have power, to use that power to create space for others to diversify the discourse. So I'll shut up right there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I guess the last question will be, both like College Art Association, MLA, American Historical Association, they established the guidelines for evaluating digital projects. What are the challenges for these guidelines for evaluating digital projects and transdisciplinary education? Why many faculty members are not yet prepared to put these guidelines into the effect? Alan, would you like to continue, or Gediminus, because you teach in the university system? So what can we do about guidelines for evaluation? What are the challenges for adopting them?
I mean, just a brief comment. I mean, I can remember a conference in Boston where Jamie Bennett from Art Place America said, only measure what you value. And I thought that was very striking. Quite often, because some things are measurable, we can establish metrics, we finish up measuring them. But if it's not what we value, then we shouldn't bother. We get distracted by that kind of stuff. So that's a rhetorical kind of answer. But, in terms of evaluation, just, sometimes for me, the most affecting collaboration is one where, everyone involved has gone away fundamentally changed. It's hard to measure that, but that felt like the most important thing that came out of it.
Gediminus, would you like to elaborate on the evaluation method?
Perhaps I'm maybe not the best person to answer this question, because if you know my practice, it is very much grounded in disobedience. So on the other hand, also MIT, it seems, it's first of all, it's a research institute, and it's very unorthodox, the way how it is run, so. As a researchers, as a principal investigators, as a faculty, we have a lot of freedom that goes beyond the orthodoxies of evaluation methods, that's maybe I should.
So going outside outside of education system, as you said before, so that's the most important. That's probably the takeaway for our panel discussion. And also art and ecology, so just and also address the climate change. This will be like important topics for our next discussions.
Absolutely.
And so we're running out of time, so thank you so much, Alan Bolden, Gediminas Urbonas, Nina Czegledi, Sильвия Бурини, for sharing your thoughts and perspective on education challenges, contemporary art and academic environment. Your passion for multidisciplinary project-based expose many students to a variety of learning experiences and develop their critical thinking. So thank you so much, the Silent Media Lab, Ground Solyanka and the Kolodзей Foundation team, and the Leonardo Journal and the community for fostering and guiding the dialogue on art, science, and education. And let's continue the conversation. Looking forward to seeing all of you on April 10th. Follow LASER, Leonardo Art and Science Evening Rendezvous, Stock, St. Petersburg, on social media. And thank you so much. And thank you so much to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.